This is the 5th round of the TM Light Series at Peoria Motor Speedway in Illinois. Tiffany Matthews took the Casargo Pole Award in her number 16 A&W machine with Afzal Tamid in the number 58 Extends car on her outside. Now Tamid just nosed ahead of Matthews at the start, but Matthews has the preferred line through the corners. But Tamid was very determined to lead in the opening laps, and he chased down Matthews and swept around her with no problem. Matthews surrenders the lead because, unlike Tamid, she realizes that there are about 80 laps in this race, so there is a long way to go. The first caution came out on lap number 6 as Axel Andersson gets turned around by Jamie Davison coming off of turn 4, and Andersson slams into the inside wall. He is done for the day in the opening laps. The entire field used this caution to make pit stops, and Bernhard Strauss only took 2 tires, so he led on the restart. But we quickly got another caution on lap 13 as Leng Chong-kun and defending series champion Thurston Blood get together on the backstretch, sending the both of them around. Claire Aussier got a tiny piece of that in the 28, and Ryan Griffin in the 18 comes piling in and slams into the 1. Eric Molina got a tiny piece of this accident and dove into the infield. He tries to get back onto the track, but then Jamie Davison pulls down into him and sends him into the wall. I'm not sure what that was about. Davison seems to have a very hard time keeping his nose clean today. After the restart, Bernhard Strauss pulls into the pits from the lead, and he drops out of the race. That car seems to be well funded, and I haven't heard anything about that team parking, but I don't really have any other explanation for what's going on here. In the meantime, Jim Hayes inherits the lead in the 07 car for Team Thunder. Hayes won at Piqua last week, but not before a controversial incident with Archer Harris in the 79. Strangely enough, he was not assessed a penalty, but he is certainly driving a much cleaner race this time around. Ryan Griffin fell a lap down in the pits under that last caution. His crew was trying to get that car repaired, but he is running extremely slowly and holding up the leaders. A 3-wide situation involving Brandon Lariou, Bobby Dollar, and Quan Ching goes wrong as Ching turns Dollar around on the front stretch, but Dollar spins well out of harm's way, and so the caution does not come out. And then we had another incident involving Jamie Davison, but this time it wasn't his fault, as Cesar Villanova pushes up into him and takes himself into the wall. That will end the day for Villanova. And once again, the caution doesn't come out, even though Villanova spilled some debris and fluids onto the track. Jim Hayes and Troy Adams enjoy a battle for the lead. Adams, of course, has the preferred line going into the corners, and so he will sweep by Hayes for the lead as Hayes runs turn 1 wide and almost gets up into the wall. Scratch that, I think he actually did get up into the wall. Afzal Tamid blows up after a very promising start to this race. This is such a tragedy for this team. It couldn't have happened to a nicer bunch of guys. The next caution comes out on lap 29 as Zach Gott gets into the wall and Dermot Scott in the 10 gets up into him, and he goes for a very long slide down the front stretch. Scott gets the car going again, and he tries to merge back into the racing line as traffic is still coming, and he gets hit by Ali Collada in the 27. Let's go on board with Collada, who was riding behind Mike Andrews at the time. There's Scott coming back up into traffic, and he actually did turn to the left a little bit. I think he saw the 27 and tried to get out of her way, but it wasn't meant to be. After the restart, Troy Adams was the leader, but he gets boxed in by the lap cars of Bobby Dollar and Dexter Hamlet, allowing Tiffany Matthews to slip back into the lead. Archer Harris is third. Jim Hayes fell back a little bit after pit stops. Ryan Griffin is still running very slowly. He gets into the wall, and Nasu Tsunamochi has nowhere to go, and this collects his teammate Leng Chong-kun in the 6. You might have seen the 04 of Joseph Cummings go spinning. He got clipped by Ryan Griffin and then swept across Andrea Quinas's front bumper. Cummings almost spun the car, but he bounced off of the 37 of John Jefferson, and so he kept going. The next caution came out immediately after the restart. Thomas Cade gets together with Mark Blackwell in the 22. Sakura Motoko has nowhere to go, and she is sent for a spin. Jim Hayes piles into the back of the 40 car, and I think that was Jamie Davison in the 29 that also got into the 40. Here is Ike Durbin as the rest of the field is trying to get away from this incident. Dexter Hamlet comes back up onto the track, starting a second incident, which I think is a little bit bigger than the first. Durbin, Dermot Scott, Quan Ching, and Andrea Quinasa were all collected. I have to wonder what made Hamlet think that he could go through the grass at full speed without anything bad happening. Bobby Dollar's car goes up in a cloud of smoke while running under caution. Claire Aussier leads on the restart after pit stops mix up the running order a bit. Brian Morris in the 14 is second, and Cameron Taylor in that rather unappealing 68 car is third. I maintain that it is impossible to make an Applebee's car look good. Anyway, you will also notice that points leader Nathan Ferguson is in fourth. Ferguson is already emerging as a championship favorite after he won 2 consecutive races. Caution 6 came out just a couple of laps after the restart as Dexter Hamlet washes up into Joseph Cummings, collecting Zach Gott off of turn number 4, and here comes the rest of the field. Hamlet got hit by a couple of cars, I think Sakura Motoko and Justin Robinson in the 11. Robinson's teammate Mark Blackwell also piled into the 71. Mike Andrews got into the 71 car as well, and he got hit in the back by Thurston Blood. That will take Mike Andrews out of the race. Motoko and Tiffany Matthews had a run-in in practice, and Motoko expresses her frustration by chasing Matthews all the way into the inside wall. Now, I think that was way out of line, and I would expect a stiff penalty to come Sakura Motoko's way. Brian Morris leads Nathan Ferguson after the restart, and they've got a pretty comfortable margin over the rest of the field at the moment. But Morris would soon get held up by, surprise, surprise, Ryan Griffin. Ferguson catches right up, but he makes no serious attempt to get around Morris at the moment. But he may want to make his move soon because Troy Adams, running third, is catching up very quickly. Adams joins the fight for the lead, and that's when Morris and Ferguson make their move around Griffin. Well, never mind Ferguson, because Ferguson is heading into the pits. Brian Morris decides to pit on the next lap. These cars have very, very small fuel cells in order to throw some variables and pit strategy into the mix. But then Troy Adams blows a tire right after he inherits the lead. He slams into the turn 2 wall and comes to a stop on the backstretch. Cameron Taylor blows up under caution after having one of his better runs of the year. Archer Harris leads on the restart, and in front of Harris are Nathan Ferguson and Brian Morris. They were trapped off the lead lap due to this ill-timed caution, and in the meantime, Quan Ching sweeps under Harris to take the lead. What a great run for the Chinese driver as the laps wind down. But Harris would take the lead back, and here he is trying to negotiate with the lap car of Lang Chang-kun. Oh, there's contact! Harris goes into the wall from the lead! Ike Durbin and Martin Baltino sneak through as Harris goes spinning down the front stretch. Harris just cannot catch a break in this series. He was run over out of the lead by Jim Hayes last week, and now this happens. Harris goes out of the race after an opportunity to win. This will hand the lead to Ike Durbin, who was nowhere near the front all day, and then in second place is Martin Baltino Jr., who actually started in last. And Baltino sweeps into the lead after working all day through attrition and pit strategy up towards the front. Quan Ching and Andrea Kinasa also find themselves third and fourth, respectively, capitalizing on the misfortunes of their rivals as well. But then a 3-wide situation between Mark Blackwell, Jamie Davison, and Jim Hayes results in Hayes and Davison going around. Davison goes hard into the inside wall, as if Davison hasn't hit enough things today. The race would end under yellow, and Martin Baltino Jr., after starting in last, would come across the line to take his first win of the season. A few weeks later, the TM Lights headed off to the Mosport Raceway in Ontario, Canada. Sakura Motoko took the Casargo Pole Award. It's surprising that she didn't get suspended or placed in the rear of the field for this race. Anyway, Motoko remains unchallenged through the first corner as Troy Adams slides into second over Bobby Dollar. Ike Durbin, coming off of his second place finish at Peoria, had to pull into the pits coming to the green flag because he had a tire go down during the parade laps. Bernard Strauss qualified towards the back of the field, and Mike Andrews only makes things worse by getting into the back of the 7 car and sending him into the wall. Lang Chang-kun gets into the back of Ryan Griffin a little bit, and then he's going to get into the 18 once again, turning him into the wall, coming into the final corner, taking Andrea Kinasa with them. I'm not too sure what Griffin did to incur Kuhn's wrath, but this will take Griffin out in the opening laps. Andrea Kinasa also goes out after having nothing to do with the start of that incident. Martin Baltino gets together with Tiffany Matthews, taking both cars into the tire wall and out of the race. Baltino qualified towards the back again, and this time he won't make it past the opening laps. Nathan Ferguson gets together with Quan Ching and goes into the wall coming onto the backstretch. Ferguson scored the last point at Peoria and this is going to set him back again. Zach Gott had to pit early after he had a tire go down. Likewise for Quan Ching, although I think he had a tire go down because of that contact with Ferguson. Bobby Dollar has been slowly catching Sakura Motoko, but coming into turn 6, Dollar runs the corner wide and he loses all of that ground to Motoko. But Dollar is still safely in the second position as third place Troy Adams is quite a ways back. Dexter Hamlet in the 54 gets into Buffy Barenas in the 24, taking both cars into the wall in the final corner. So Hamlet continues his streak of careless driving, and Barenas goes out of the race. Bobby Dollar is still trying to catch Sakura Motoko, and he has been slowly reeling her in once again. They got the lat car of Quan Ching just ahead. I wonder if the 3 might come into play, but it looks like the 2 leaders are coming into the pits. Oh, Sakura Motoko runs off the course and almost puts herself into the wall, but Bobby Dollar takes the lead coming into the pit lane. But a very quick stop by Motoko's crew puts her back out in front of Bobby Dollar. Jamie Davison stayed out for an extra lap and took the lead. He is driving a much cleaner race this time around. And then when Motoko gets the lead back, she holds a commanding margin over Brian Morris and Archer Harris. Harris seems to be good about running up towards the front, but as we've seen in the past couple of races, something tends to happen to him that takes him out of the running. Maybe his luck will turn around this week. Ali Collada had to make an unscheduled pit stop, and she would fall a lap down, and shortly afterwards, she would start holding up her teammate, Claire Aussier. Aussier doesn't seem to like this, and she turns the 27 around, right in front of Eric Molina. Somehow, I don't think Aussier and Collada will be on speaking terms for a while. And then things go from bad to worse for Collada as her car experiences a mechanical failure and she slows to a crawl on the backstretch. In the meantime, Archer Harris comes after Brian Morris for the second spot. That is Roger Kendall lurking back in the 4th spot. And, oh, there's a bit of contact between Harris and Morris, but Harris is going to complete the pass. Brandon LaRoe breaks down after running inside the top 15 all day. He starts to pull his car off to the right, but then he suddenly turns back onto the racing line right in front of Jamie Davison. Davison had been running a very respectable race after hitting everything but the pace car last week, and now he gets taken out in an incident that was not of his own doing. I would really like to know why LaRoe thought that turning back into traffic was a good idea. Nasu Tsunamochi is running very quietly in 5th. Tsunamochi doesn't exactly have the best reputation in the DM Light series, but maybe a performance like this can help him put together some better runs in the future. Sakura Motoko kicks off the second round of pit stops, and not too many people are following her in this time around. We've got some differing strategies for this second round. 2nd through 4th, Archer Harris, Brian Morris, and Roger Kendall all pit on the following lap, and Claire Aussier stays out for a little bit longer than the majority of the field. But when pit stop cycled out, it was still Motoko with a commanding lead over the rest of the field, and Sakura Motoko would remain untouched as she comes off the final corner to take her first TM Light Series victory.